we gonna wait a couple or we can get started?
I think we'll get started.
Okay.
Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. Thanks, Jasmine. Thank you for the Zoom. Great. Welcome, everybody, to the Anchorage Equity Committee of the Assembly. We can get started with some introductions. Let's do introductions first, then we'll do a land acknowledgement that Asher Harley is going to do. So do you want to start our introductions today, Junior?
Oh, sure.
Yeah. Oops.
Hello, Junior Almavada, Chief Equity Officer for this valley.
Thanks. I'm Thea Agnew-Benden, co-chair of the committee.
All right, lastly, I'll be May, co-chair of the committee.
My name is Asher Harley. I'm here representing Congregation Beth Shalom.
We have to try and be properly used.
Oh, yeah.
Once you go again, start practice.
My name is Asher Harley. I'm here representing Congregation Beth Shalom.
Hi, I'm Lori Pickett, and I work at the Alaska Literacy Program.
Sean Case, Anchorage Police Department.
Jasmine Akers, Acting Deputy Clerk and staff of the committee.
Okay, I can call on folks online. Lucy.
Hi.
Do you want to introduce yourself, Lucy?
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't catch the first. Hi, I'm Lucy Hanson, CEO for Pollination Association of Alaska. Thank you, I'm here.
Great, glad you're here. Candace.
Hi, I'm Candace Bell. I'm with Alaska Rainbow Elders, the LGBT elder community.
Great, thanks, Candace. Kathy.
Good evening. My name is Tafiti Somo. I am from the Pacific Community of Alaska.
Great, glad you're here. Mira. Oops.
Hi, good evening. My name is Mara Kimmel. I'm with the ACLU of Alaska.
Great. Felix.
Hi everyone, Felix Rivera, Anchorage Assembly.
Heather.
Hi, Heather Ireland, Anchorage School-Based Health Centers.
Great. And Teresa.
Hi, Teresa Holt, AARP in Alaska.
Great. Is there anyone else online who hasn't introduced themselves yet? Okay, thanks for being here, everybody. Asher, do you want to get us started?
Sure. As a land acknowledgement, we acknowledge that we gather here today on the traditional lands of the Dena'ina people of Upper Cook Inlet. For thousands of years, the Dena'ina people have been and continue to be the stewards of this land. Our committee is committed to diversity and inclusion, and it is with honor and respect that we recognize all Indigenous people who live and learn in our community.
Great, thank you, Asher. And at our last meeting, we decided that we would do a land and possibly a land and labor acknowledgement to begin our meetings, and would ask committee members if they would be willing to do one. So is there anyone who would be willing to volunteer to do our acknowledgement at our next meeting in August? It's not that scary.
Tia, can you give me the date, please?
Jasmine can. One second.
August. Through the chair, August 31st.
August 31st. Kathy, would that work for you?
Sorry, that won't work for me, but I can do September for sure.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. We'll put you down for September. Anyone else want to volunteer? If not, we can work on this offline.
I'll do the August one. That's Lucy.
Oh, great. Awesome. Thank you, Lucy. So Lucy for August and Kathy for September. Fantastic. Thank you. Okay, so let's move on to unfinished business. Our first agenda item is discussing the body camera policy updates with Deputy Chief Sean Case. Can you give us an update?
As of about 90 minutes ago maybe, we finished the contract portion of it, and it should be in front of the Assembly for a vote on the 8th. We are the last little bit of delays here, like waiting for the 8th for the vote in the Assembly. Doesn't actually delay the rollout of it. The vendor has already kind of put us in line for ordering cameras and things like that, so we don't have to wait until the 8th to kind of get in that long line of people trying to get a camera phone. But once that vote happens, then they'll obviously we'll be able to pay them. So we'll have the vendors coming on site. So if most people recall, it's not just body-worn cameras, it's also in-car video, as well as the cameras that are in our interview room. So it's all one system, only one integrated system. All three of the systems also integrate into our new CAD RMS system that will be coming live at the end of first quarter next year. So it's important that we have the dash cam videos as well at the same time that we go live with the body cam videos.
Great. I'm sure we'll have good questions. Do you want to also just speak before we start questions about the policy? I know there was a lot of back and forth about the policy, and just do you want to give us an update on that?
Sure. Most of the back and forth on the policy, well, it depends how far I want to go back, but the original back and forth on the policy was, I lost track, I think 3 or 4 public meetings we held, so we had some back and forth with the community on things they wanted inside the policy. And then once that portion was complete, then we went and fulfilled our contractual obligation with the APDA and negotiated a portion of the contract that falls under working conditions. And we eventually went to impasse on that and scheduled arbitration to resolve those issues. And that arbitration was originally, I believe it was April, and then it got pushed back to October. And then we were able to come to an agreement on the policy issues that we were having over a month ago now. So the policy has been in final form. The employees currently have the policy. They're all signing off on the policy right now. And then we'll start in-service training on the policy. We already started doing a little bit of in-service training, but we'll really start hitting it in August and September to make sure that all the employees have it. We don't want to start it too far in advance of getting the technology. We kind of wanted the officer to have that training and then have them have a camera so that they were familiar with the policy, how to use it, clear on the expectations.
Can you just review the policy, or at least kind of the highlights of how it's going to be used and who's going to have access to it and all the things that were, these were things that people were asking questions about during the public process?
Sure. I think the biggest issue, and if I miss one of the issues, Celeste will certainly clue me in. And I'll talk a little bit to you about, because I also have some concerns. So there's always a concern of privacy issue when it comes to having body-worn cameras. From a police standpoint, we love having cameras and we love using them for evidence and all the good things that's involved. But I never forget that we're all Alaskans and we really embrace the right to privacy that we have in the Constitution. And so we really tried to balance that right to privacy, particularly when we were talking with the community at the very onset. Having the government come to your house with body-worn cameras that are audio and video, there's concerns of public health with that. At the same time, the public's purchasing body-worn cameras for us, and the expectation is not that we're turning these things on and off throughout various calls for service. The expectations that we record. So, our training is, in our rollout, sensitive to that right to privacy. We want to ensure that when we've got juveniles or we're in hospital facilities or it's a sexual assault investigation, that we try to limit our recording in certain situations because of the sensitivity of the topic or the individual that we're with. So you'll if you look at the policy and read, you'll see that there's some discretion there on the part of their officer to try to respect that right. The reviewing body cams is a pretty big issue in terms of when officers can look at the body cam footage. Our policy allows them, after they're involved in any sort of use of deadly force or in custody death, they have to provide a criminal and or administrative interview or statement. And I say and or because some people forget that officers under the criminal side of law are protected by the U.S. Constitution like anyone else, and technically they can decline to participate in a criminal investigation. Our officers do not do that. But if they were to do that, they would still have to provide an administrative statement prior to viewing that video. If they so choose to watch the video after that, they can provide additional information if they want. But the initial interview with the employee has to come without viewing. Then on a day-to-day function, anytime the officer causes injury to somebody, punches someone, kicks someone, tases someone, uses pepper spray, uses a baton, any of those sorts of uses of force, they have to document that use of force in a use of force report without viewing the video. They're then allowed to watch the video to write the rest of their police report. So if you think if they arrested someone for the crime of domestic violence assault, after they document the use of force, if one took place, then they want to, they're going to have access to the video so that they can, because they're using that as a audio recording device as well. So when they document their police report, interviews, and things like that, they can review it to finish the rest of the report. So that's the viewing. And I think the third area that, the third area that we're concerned about is when we're going to release the videos publicly. And so a couple statements on that. The first thing that we did was when we created this last draft of the policy, to be honest, we took the language out of the Department of Public Safety policy. It seemed like they had a lot of support for the statements that they put in there on how they're going to release the policy, which for them it's the commissioner, for us it's the police chief that will obviously comply with public records request laws, but they can proactively release the video to the public, whereas currently we don't proactively release any of those videos to the public. They go through the straight records request process. Kind of as I think an important piece of information to understand on releasing the videos. Previously we have taken the stance, AP has taken the stance that there are a lot of victims involved with video release. If the individual had deadly force used upon them and they're still alive, they clearly are somebody that we care about. They got family, they got friends. The officers have families, friends. So there's a lot of, I use the word victim loosely. The probably better way to say it is a lot of people involved that experience trauma from that type of an incident, to include the community. And so our stance has always been releasing that video, can be damaging and have side effects. However, with that being said, it's pretty clear that there's some public interest in seeing some of those videos, and so we recognize that, and that's why we softened up the language. It's also interesting to note that we have at least 5 police agencies in this state that have had officer-involved use of deadly force on body-worn camera, and nobody to date has released that video publicly. I have no doubt we will probably be the first agency that does that, and I have no doubt that will end in litigation because of the right to privacy. So we will go down this road, but it will not be without complications throughout the way.
Great. Thank you. What questions? Pastor May, I think you had your hand up.
Yes. Did I understand you to say that the rollout would be at the end of the first quarter of next year?
CAT-RMS, so our computer automated dispatch that it will integrate with, that comes online at the end of first year. That's not going to delay the rollout of body-worn. But what that allows us to do is the cameras will be in sync with our computer-aided dispatch. So if you think if an officer hits his record button and they're on a call for service, that video is automatically electronically connected to that call for service. And so it will link it to that call, it will convert all the information so that we know date, time, place will all be categorized electronically so officers don't have to sit at the end of shift and sit down at a computer and put in all that information.
Okay, since it seems like it sounds to me like it's a narcotic thing, that rollout will be at the end of the first quarter. So actually, when does the body worn cams roll out and come into use?
Body worn cameras will be rolled out the fourth quarter of this year.
Okay.
And so for that time period where the new computer-aided dispatch is not online, what happens is every time the officer records, either on their phone or in the computer system, it will log this recording, and the officer will have to sit down at the end of the day and pull up all their calls for service, pull up that and log each call either throughout the shift or at the end of the day. So it'll take some administrative time, but it'll be done.
Okay, then additionally, my understanding was one of the negotiational points of largesse was the reporting, and you kind of hit that fairly well as far as when an officer could use the video from the body worn camera, and it would be after making an original statement is kind of what I heard, and so that was one of the major points of negotiation for officers, or I'll say the union or whatever, and so what broke that kind of to what we have now?
A lot of work, a lot of conversation. It's probably as far as, negotiations are confidential, but it was months of conversations and communicating. What I can say is that I think officers have a justifiable concern that if there's something that's different in a video than what they recall and they put in their police report, that they're going to be accused of lying. And I think that is justified, right? You write something down on a piece of paper that happened and a video is different, and the natural reaction is, well, what you wrote originally is not true, and now you're a liar. And for those of you who don't know, when we get found of lying, our career's over. And so I understand that concern, and it's just a lot of conversations take place to try to make sure that all parties involved really understand how cameras work, what cameras, the angle they work at, what they can capture, what the limitations of the cameras are, and the process that the police department will use to look at force that officers have utilized now that we have body-worn cameras. But remember, we've had dash cams for 10 years. We have numerous officer-involved uses of deadly force that are caught on dash cam, particularly our last one. And that's a stable camera, that's high-definition camera. So we have a history of having videos of these incidents. We have a history of completing investigations with videos. So this is, although new technology, it's not new technology. And I'll even make the argument that if I was to have a choice of what video I'm going to have it on, body-worn dash cam, I'm taking dash cam all day because it's stable. It's not bouncing around. It's not getting, arms aren't moving it. And for those of you who've spent hundreds of hours looking at Escher body cam video like I do, it's hard. You got to break it down frame by frame to see what's happening because so much is happening in front of that little camera and it's moving around. It will be helpful. So it's a little bit different technology than we
I think John Q. Public was majorly concerned about that specific issue and was probably somewhat pleased that the negotiations brought it to the point where it is. And so my understanding from your statement is that after the written report, then the officer can go ahead and view and then make additional commentary relative to having viewed it, so as I guess that kind of bridges that gap between giving somebody some space to not be called a liar, so to speak.
Correct.
Okay. I think that's what I had.
Celeste, did you have?
Yeah, hi, how are you?
Wonderful. No, she just got to tilt here, tilt the pan.
So I missed the first part of the meeting, and so you said you already have a vendor for the body cams?
About 90 minutes ago, the municipality side is completely done with contracting. It should be, I'm quite confident, Felix can jump in here, but I think it's on the agenda the 8th of next month. We are already in line. We already have our placeholder for ordering the cameras, so technically we can't order them until the assembly votes on it. but we're not delaying. They've already put us in line like 6 weeks ago for, so that we wouldn't have to say, okay, well, now they voted on it and said, yes, we're in line, and now we're 6 months out from cameras because we just ordered them. So that's kind of the one positive I have.
And so it looks like they're going to roll out, I think I heard you say the end of the year?
Fourth quarter this year, yeah.
Okay. Some additional question, please. So are you still looking at just the 30 officers starting out with?
So part of the delay, I'll kind of a little broader answer to kind of help understand. Part of the delay is the vendor is coming up to assist the radio shop in putting the body cam or the dash cam videos in the vehicles so that they can outfit the vehicles at the same time. And what we will initially do, 30 cameras, 30 days. And that's more of a function check, 30 days. In reality, the way it's going to work is, the radio shop isn't going to be able to outfit 300 cars overnight. Mm-hmm. So probably what you're going to see happening is by the time that 30-day process is over, we'll probably already be doing build cars as fast as we can to the radio shop, getting the dash cam videos in and the body cams at the same time. So technically, we're saying 30 days with 30 cameras to function check them, but the cameras are going to be rolling out as quickly as we can get them out.
Okay, so you're ordering more than 30.
Oh yeah, no,
okay.
We order the full, yeah. We'll have all of the cameras will be here at the same time.
So are you still doing the volunteer?
Yes, we will have officers that want to volunteer to go first. We have lots of officers that are volunteering. We have well over 30. A lot of officers want these cameras. So, and we're probably going to roll them primarily out in patrol because you have so many patrol officers that want to utilize them. And so we may as well get them out to the unit that's the primary responder for calls for service.
So, but at the end of the day, all officers will be equipped with body cams. Is that correct?
Yeah, all uniformed officers will be equipped with body cams. So if you're getting a call for service, if you're getting stopped by an officer on a traffic stop, if you have public interaction with an officer that identifies themselves as an Anchorage police officer, they're going to have a body-worn camera.
So it'd be mandatory for them to wear those, correct?
Correct. Yeah, that's outlined in policy.
From the top down.
I'm not sure if you want the chief of police and deputy chief of police coming into meetings and recording everything and conversations. That's not required by policy. One
final question, if I may, and that is, since dash cams have been in effect for over 10 years or so, why was it so hard to bridge the gap with body cams? I mean, technology is the technology, and I understand the dash cam is stable and all of that, but body cams catch more immediate. But why is it such a bridge?
So I think just generally the movement to body cams, if you want, the challenge of moving to body cams is where we're at now and where we started with years and years ago. It's really a hurdle that we have to overcome with, law enforcement generally, with that right to privacy across the country, let alone Alaska, which is explicit. Mayor's on the line, and I know the ACLU's been involved in body cam interaction and litigation around the country for years because departments jumped to it, they put it on, and now we've got privacy issues. And so originally, when this technology rolled out, back in the days of Chief Mew, his opinion was, we're not going to be the first to do this and mess it up. He had the same approach for tasers, another piece of technology that a lot of police departments went to, a lot safer than other types of use of force or use of force tools. And his theory was, we're going to have patrol utilizing it because don't know the landscape and we're not going to be the first to hop on. And so for APD, that was kind of our approach at the beginning. Once we got to the point where we wanted to jump on, then there was a battle over how we're going to pay for it. And that lasted for, that was part of the last mayoral election. up for conversation and topic with some of the candidates. And then we kind of know what happened after that. So it was more of a right to privacy and then a money issue. And I'm not, by me saying that, I'm also not trying to make excuses that we delayed it for a good or a bad reason. That's just kind of the fact of the conversation that's happening at the time.
Okay, thank you.
Is there anyone on Zoom who wants to ask a question or share a comment or any feedback about this?
I have a question. This is Lucy.
Go ahead, Lucy.
You was talking about policy updates on this. My question is, when a written report is done, if, let's say, if an officer have this body camera on, and after it's transferred automatically, I guess that's what you said, online straight to whoever is recording it. If at some point in time that there's a glitch or maybe internet access is disconnected somehow, do you have a backup server where you can pick up what was left? And then that's a part of my first question. The second question is, if where does the community come into this if they wanted to review what was in the camera or the film? If there's a case or if there's a question about a stop or something happened.
So answer the first question is the officer's vehicle, for lack of a better word, is a hotspot. There's internet service that's constantly available to the police car as they're driving around. And so when the officer goes back to the police car, turns the camera off, the upload process starts. And if the upload process is interrupted, it's kind of like any other digital cloud storage solution. It pauses the upload, and as soon as connection's reestablished, it will continue the upload. So the process isn't lost if there is any disruption in connection. And then once it's in the cloud, it's obviously in the cloud, and it's, the server that we're using is a well-known, large digital management cloud system that's the most widely used in this country, so as it relates to police services. So pretty reliable. And then the members of the public can do a public records request through our main webpage. And so you'll fill out a form basically online. If you don't have access to a computer, you can come into the police station, you can even call the police station and we'll fill out that information for you. And that puts it in queue so you can kind of track how long it takes to get your records requests filled, and we'll go through a redaction process. And once the video is able to be shared, it would be shared with whoever requested it. Part of the delays in getting any record, even just a police report, is it's connected, or it may be connected to, like, for instance, everyone wants a police report for the traffic collision to give their insurance company. But if that traffic collision also involved a driving under the influence case, and that's a pending case, then there's portions of that collision investigation report that can't be released because it impacts that criminal case that's still pending. So anytime you make a records request to the police department, there's always a process that we have to go through before we can release it.
So follow up to that.
you.
How long after an incident would the information in the body cams be available for public?
So it depends what the incident is, right? If an officer did a traffic stop and wrote you a ticket, nothing in that stop, just an average traffic stop where you got a ticket or a warning, would preclude release of that video. And so the only thing delaying that video being released to you is how many people are in queue in front of you.
Okay, so if that traffic stop led to some untoward action, then what would the process entail?
Then it would have to go through the portions of the criminal process. An example that was public was the officer involved shooting that happened on A Street, Mr. Hassan, and that video was released by the plaintiff's attorney, and then later had to not really pull it off the axis, but not have that feed out there by a court order because there was a civil litigation going on.
Yeah.
So that's an example of it's still delaying
Yeah.
because of a civil process that's taking place.
Okay. So those processes would effectively delay the release of it, even if the public was clamoring for it.
Yes, it could delay the release of it. When I mentioned earlier about releasing videos of a officer involved use of deadly force, and I said that we probably are going to be the first to do that, because we see other agencies that have body cams that haven't, and that will also probably lead to some sort of litigation. That's the exact scenario. If the chief says, hey, I want to release this video, and we're still in the middle of litigation, that's going to cause a supplementary suit to take place. And so, we understand those risks, and the chief wanted in the policy that he still would be willing to do that. So that's why I say I feel as though we'll probably be the first police department to test that in the state.
And you mentioned Mr. Hassan, and that effectively, we had to really go to litigation almost 2 years after this to get information for the family. And that was kind of excessive in my mind. Yeah.
Lucy, you wanted to
I have another question.
Yes. Okay, and then after this question, we're going to move on to a different topic. So go ahead, Lucy.
Going back to what Reverend May was saying about how long are you, the police are planning to archive this videos, just in case if you go through the court and then a case is closed, but then somebody else have to they wanted to reopen it. How long are you planning to keep this?
So we have retention schedules for each kind of level of incident. So things that are very, very low levels, I think it's 3 years, I'm reading on the last page, 2 years. That allows for, if there is any civil litigation, somebody can file and we'll still have the documentation. Misdemeanors are generally 5 years, felonies are generally 10 years. There's also a state statute required that if it's homicide or sexual assault, those types of things, those are kept indefinitely. So that's kind of the retention schedule of the videos of our average recordings.
Great.
Thank you.
Great, thanks, Lucy. Any final questions or comments before we go on? Lori.
I have a question off topic, but way off topic. I would just like reassurance, if possible. We've had a violent crime happen within our immigrant community, and there's been a lot of fear to go to the police because of immigration status. Can I assure our community that regardless of immigration status, if they have a violent crime, they should reach out? Or that if they do reach out, that they're safe to do that?
We do not check immigration status of victims. We understand that our immigrant community that gets victimized are usually victimized at a much higher rate because they're less likely to report. And so it's always been our goal to protect those victims so they'll report the crime without fear of their status.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for entertaining that.
Thank you. And thanks so much for being here. That's very helpful. You bet. Yep. Okay, great. Awesome. Okay, our next item is the language access audit, but we don't have a person to provide an update, right, Jasmine? Did they hand this on to anyone, or?
Through the chair, I have not heard anything from them.
Okay. So I think Michael was the person who came earlier, and you said that you thought maybe he retired.
I thought I heard something, but I'm not 100% sure. Maybe Assemblymember Rivera knows more about where Michael Chadwick is. But
well, I just wonder how we can track down who's working on the audit.
Who could do the audit,
Yeah. Felix, do you have any advice on this?
Yeah, thanks. So I don't have any update on the audit. Usually the assembly gets a notice when an audit has started, and we haven't received that yet for this particular audit. So I assume it hasn't started yet. The assertion that is correct, Mike has retired, so probably Scott in audit is the appropriate person to ask until the administration announces someone to replace Mike.
Jasmine, did you reach out to Scott?
Through the chair, I have not, but I can.
Okay, that'd be awesome. So we'll just keep this on.
Yeah, well, I thought in one of the emails you stated that you you did raise a question if there was someone in addition to the original person who would be able to, so they never responded.
I have a question. Wasn't there other audits, other groups, or was there more than just that one audit that we were looking at? Because I'd like to add AERC on there, the Anchorage Human Rights Commission. Isn't that what they were doing an audit on? I'm sorry?
Were they doing an audit on the equal rights?
No, I don't think we brought that up, but there's been a lot of information surrounding AERC, their backlog, the lack of funding for that agency, and we all know that that's a group that's definitely needed.
So Celeste, are you suggesting the committee like request an audit or request
Yes.
information, or should we start by just requesting someone to come and talk with us?
That'd be good.
Okay. Okay, I'll add that to the next. Actually, we won't probably do that for August since we have all of our annual stuff, but for September, that would be great. Okay, so the next two items of unfinished business were two committees that we talked about setting up at our last meeting. And to my knowledge, we haven't moved forward with either. I'm just gonna chalk that up to summer. But the first one was Community Data Collection Subcommittee. That was gonna be me, Taffy, and Taylor. And Taffy, since you're here, I don't think Taylor's here today. When do you think is a realistic time for us to get started on that? Just speaking purely from your own schedule. What do you think?
I would say in the next 2 weeks. Give me next 2 weeks.
Okay, and let's say, should we try and have a meeting before our August meeting? How about we shoot for that? Does that work for you?
Sounds good to me.
Okay.
Yep, that sounds good for me.
Okay, I'll get that going. And then, Mara, do you want to speak to the welcoming Anchorage one? Certified welcoming?
Well, I was just taking a cue from you. Maybe we could do the same thing, because you're right, we have not done anything. I have one question though, which is, how many people before the Open Meetings Act triggers? Because I thought that we put more people on that committee.
It's 3.
Rule of 3.
So do we not, we had talked about Lori and Issa potentially also, you know, and whomever else, but then it would require open meetings. So I've been thinking about this because obviously it's something that is gnawing at me because I didn't do anything on it over the last month. But if we want to make it bigger, which I thought we did, then we would need to work to create an Open Meeting Act meeting.
Yeah, it just means we have to do a public notice. But maybe I could suggest, and just if we want to try and get a meeting before our August meeting, if Lori's willing to participate, maybe you participate instead of me, just for that first initial meeting with 3 people, and then you can decide how you want to proceed, and we can do public notices from there on. Does that sound okay, Mara?
Yeah, why don't we though go ahead and plan a meeting with the 3 of us listed on here, and then I can reach out to Lori and see what she thinks, or Issa.
And I'm just hours away from getting on a plane for 2.5 weeks.
Okay, cool. So we'll go forward with us 3, and then we can figure it out from there. But you'll organize that, right, Mara?
Yes.
Great. Any other comments or thoughts on those 2 items?
Sorry, could you clarify who that was that just said they're getting on a plane for 2 weeks?
That's Lori. Okay.
Oh, hi, Lori. Okay.
Yeah.
So Lori, forget it.
For now, not forever. Yeah. Okay, great. Let's move on to new business. Do we have any new member nominations? One that came up last meeting that we discussed, but we didn't really move forward on, was having someone from the Chamber of Commerce join us. Does anybody have any thoughts on that? And or does anybody have anyone at the chamber that they want to reach out to?
This is Lucy. I wanted to bring in a Filipino community through Alaska Federation of Filipino, but I have not had a confirmation yet with them, so I will email everybody once I get confirmation for the individual. And then maybe we can add it to next meeting.
That's great. That sounds good, Lucy. So yeah, you're welcome to email, so we put it on the agenda, and then we talk about it as a committee and make sure there's no objection, and then that person's welcome to come the next time. Any thoughts in the chamber? Anybody?
Well, I want to go back to this one.
Oh, okay. You go back to this one.
Relative to the Alaska,
Sorry.
relative to the Alaska Federation of Filipino, whatever. I don't know if, is there a specific person who's heading that federation, Lucy?
Yes, Alaska Federation of Filipino American, AFA. They do have a president, and that's Pepe, and I have not get a confirmation back from her, but I did talk with her, and she said she has somebody else because of the time. So they will let me know.
Okay.
And I will follow back with them.
Thank you, Lucy. That was my reason for asking, because if the head of the organization is making a recommendation for someone to this body, that would be apropos. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, last call for a chamber. Anybody? I know they have a DEI committee, and they have a young professionals group too, which is cool.
When you ask questions like that, I reflect back to the mission of this group, and so that's what I'm doing. I'm just like, because it just seems like we're spread. And I just want to make sure we stay focused, because there's so many other groups that are out there doing a lot of stuff, but there's none like this group.
Mm-hmm. I think
according to our mission.
Came out of our conversation about Juneteenth and how awesome that partnership was, and whether we wanted to have them more engaged so that they were even more aware of the work that's happening with the groups that are represented here. We can just table it. It's not a big deal. It was like an idea that came up.
Again, my thing is maybe that's not the correct title, but it used to be the president of the chamber or whatever would be a contact person, and then if they wanted to submit somebody that'd be part of this, I would have no issue with that. But I'm also in agreement with the spreading out of what we are about, because a lot of influences tend to take us, we start out chasing deer, and a lot of influences tend to take us on rabbit trails. And so I kind of use that about preaching a lot. You know, we start out chasing deer and wind up on rabbit trails and kind of get away from the main focus of what we're about. And I'm not suggesting that bringing more in and other voices will do that, but I'm just saying we have to stay focused. Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
Okay, sounds like we table that for now. Great. Are there committee member updates? So let's go to Zoom first. Folks on Zoom, anyone want to share an update from your organization or an upcoming event that you want to make sure everyone knows about?
This is Lucy again. I'm sorry. We have an update from our Pacific Island community. We are coming in on Monday 31st. We're going to have our 4th quarterly Pacific Island Community Connection. And that is going to be at 2600 East 16. It's open to anyone, not just our Pacific Island, but this is a connection that we provide information and resources that is out there and available for our community. So just to let everybody know. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Lucy. Other folks on Zoom want to share any community updates or events? Okay, how about here in the room?
I would share one.
Yep.
The MLK Martin Luther King Jr. Foundation of Alaska is having a mid-year fundraising type worship celebration kind of thing that'll be at 4 o'clock on this particular Sunday, the 30th at Shiloh at 4.
Awesome. Celeste, or, yeah.
Can I share an event, even though it's not my event?
Just hang on one second, Lucy. Go ahead, Celeste.
So on August the 20th, well, in August, the entire month is National Black Business Month. So we're going to be supporting our businesses, the businesses in the Black community, and we're asking folks to consider that as well. And then on August the 20th, we're hosting a community conversation on Black businesses in Alaska, and also hosting a reception. And I think OEO is going to be supporting that with us. So just wanted to make note of that. And the location will be determined. We're hoping to get the mayor's conference room too.
Great, and go ahead, Lucy.
Well, this is not my event, but it's a community event that I think is this Saturday, and it's a Mountain View block party, and it's open to everyone. It's kind of like a back to school deal thing, so it's in Mountain View, so just want to let everybody know.
Great, thank you.
Leah, this is Teresa.
Yeah, go ahead, Teresa.
So I just wanted to let folks know that the Digital Equity Plan Steering Committee is doing key performance indicators for each of the 8 groups. There's a pretty quick turnaround in the next 2 weeks. So if you had listening sessions with someone, make sure you connect with them to have a chance to go over the key performance indicators in that digital equity plan and make sure that the issues that you talked about are getting covered.
And Teresa, how would people find that information? Is it on a website or?
Well, so if, like, for example, I can't remember who held the group with Lucy, but whoever she, who held that group, she would get in contact with them. That's probably the easiest way, because there's 8 different communities that are listed in the federal grant. So like I'm the one for seniors. Alaska Warrior Partnership is the one for veterans. I think Rural Cap is the one for rural communities. So there's 8 different ones. If you can't, if you don't know who to contact, people could email me and I would help you find the right person.
Thanks, Teresa. Yes.
Question. Just, excuse my ignorance, but what does the digital equity plan revolve around?
Teresa, can you describe what the digital equity plan is?
I think we're one of the organizations, so I can speak that if Teresa's not there.
Yep.
There's going to be a very large amount of money coming from the federal government around digital equity. And so the Rasmussen Foundation has taken the lead and has combined some of their foundation funds along with federal dollars to work hard on a statewide digital equity plan in which they've been holding listening sessions with many different communities about what their issues are around that. And I think the plan has to be out by the end of August. And so there's already been a lot of work done. We've been involved for, I want to say, 6 months at least now. Lucy, does that sound about right? Did I miss anything? Lucy is.
Yeah, I think it's, also, because we're in the first session or the first part of this, broadband thing, tests internet accessible. And so the first part of it is finding barriers from each communities on what they're going through with accessible on internet, if whatever barriers that they have. So for us, we're working with our community Anchorage to find barriers that they are having from not having this internet access. So I think that is what the first part of it, to gather those information for the state. And then they put their report together is where they're asking for money for the state of Alaska because of the barriers that each community is going through.
Okay.
So that's my.
So I'm back, sorry.
That-
I couldn't even get the mute button to work.
Part of
Thank you.
understanding of it.
Thank you, Lucy. That kind of helps me because I was trying to wrap my mind around the digital part of equity, digital equity planning. So basically it's dealing with equal access for digital movement as far as like internet and different things that are digitally dispensed.
And
Right, so different communities, I mean, the goal for the plan is that everyone would have access, they could afford it, and they would know how to use computers, internet services, phones, any kind of device.
Yeah, okay.
so just to add to that, the Alaska Black Caucus is actually hosting a session this Sunday as our community conversation. So it's on digital equity. We recognize it's not a luxury, but a necessity. And so there's gonna be so much money coming into the state surrounding it, and we are not going to be left out this time. So that's why we're holding it. We want all the information there is and to see how we can tap into it as well.
Great, thanks for all that. Any other, Teresa, go ahead.
Sorry, so I'll send when the plan comes out, because it'll be out for public comment, hopefully August 10th. So I'll send that to Thea and Pastor May, and you guys can make sure it gets out to everybody.
Yeah, if you actually send it to Jasmine, you're welcome to CCS.
Oh, to Jasmine,
She's
okay.
the one that gets stuff out to the committee, yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Great, any other member updates or announcements? Okay, Felix, you're here as our assembly member. Do you want to share any updates or announcements?
Yeah, I guess there's certainly a lot that could be discussed. Is there anything specific that you want me to go over?
Do members have any specific questions or issues that they're interested in hearing about from Felix?
My question would be at this point, rather than going through a smorgasbord of things, is there anything that you are aware of that would affect this committee in the immediate?
Yeah, that's a good question, broad question. So I would say, as usual, nothing new. This committee tends to want to keep up to date on homelessness, and so I would suggest this committee do that. I don't think there's anything that's not in the media that this committee probably doesn't know. So you saw the recent announcement by the mayor, that we're working through our emergency cold weather shelter needs, about the pilot program. Yeah, I can't think of anything else that's not being reported or widely reported in the media that I need to really key in on. I guess another thing that I know that this committee likes to pay attention to is the Port of Alaska, and so as has been reported in the media. The Assembly took some action on that at our last Assembly meeting with both the design and the surcharge. I think I'll leave it at that unless there are other specific questions folks want me to address.
Felix, I try to stay up on it, but even watching the assembly meetings, I still find that I fall behind. Is there a plan to have a low barrier shelter this fall, winter, spring time?
Yeah, thanks. So there's, we are currently working on a pathway to get us to the development of a low barrier shelter. We know that we need one, and we're working through the process to select a site for a permanent year-round low barrier shelter. I think for a lot of us, the goal is to get through that process by the end of the year. We'll see if that's something that we can realistically do or not.
When you say year, are you like fiscal year, or are you talking about by the end of December? I'm just worried about like the gap in time between when it starts to get cold and when the end of the year is.
Yeah, thanks. So when I say end of the year, I mean end of the calendar year. And so the emergency cold weather shelter plan is really what's going to be addressing our cold weather concerns that folks have. And whether the permanent year-round low barrier shelter has a role to play or not depends on how quickly that we can act on shelter. I think right now the assumption being made is that we don't act quick enough or fast enough on shelter so that those additional 150 beds aren't in play. So that's the planning assumption that's being made right now. So when we plan for emergency cold weather shelter, which is a part of our Title 16 requirements, right now we are planning for roughly 450 individuals. We take down 150. We take that down 150 if we got a shelter up and running, but right now we're not assuming that.
Sorry, this is Mara, and I don't know where my hand raising thing is, but Felix, could you be a little more specific then about the cold weather piece of this? Or are you just planning on finding housing for 450 people?
Yeah, thanks. That would be wonderful if we could find housing for 450 people. But,
I agree.
but no, that's not part of the plan. So I guess just to briefly summarize the plan, as it's currently being developed. So right now we know there are roughly between 750 individuals who are unsheltered in our community. We expect that roughly a chunk of those individuals will be placed into housing or move through the pipeline of the homelessness prevention response system between now and the end of October. So that leaves us with a planning number of around 450 individuals who won't have capacity within existing shelter, within the housing that we know is coming online. That's the number that we know we need a plan for. And who is the we? That's the municipality, the Anchorage Coalition, and homelessness. Everyone is agreeing that 450 number is the number that we need a plan for. So the municipality is working through that plan, and in August we should have a sense of what that plan looks like. Which, by the way, for those curious, for the historical perspective, we typically don't even start thinking about that plan until August. So we are months ahead of where we normally are in the planning process for the emergency cold weather shelter. What is the cold weather shelter plan going to look like? It's probably going to rely on two things, and the work that the health department and others do between now and the mid to end of August will finesse this. But it's probably going to rely on two things. One of them is non-congregate shelter. So meaning relying on our hotel spaces, which the hotel spaces took a chunk of last year's emergency cold weather shelter plan. So it's nothing new. Now we're looking at using, expanding our ability to use more hotel spaces. And then the second thing that we're looking at is existing capacity and what we can do to enhance capacity. So as one example, right now Brother Francis Shelter is at 120 individuals. Is Brother Francis Shelter amenable for a temporary, just for the winter shelter plan, so October through April, are they amenable to going up to 150? So we're going to look at our capacity within the system, see if there's any shelter that can enhance their capacity just a little bit during the winter, and then non-congregate hotel shelter for the 450. That's generally what the plan is shaping up to be, but in August, we'll know more.
Okay, I think if we want to have discussion on this item, we might need to put it on our agenda for August, because we still have some other items to get through. But are there any like brief questions or comments on this one?
No, I'm just saying, I don't know how to be brief on this. So we'll just put it on the agenda for next.
Yeah, because then we'd actually have the plan to review as well.
We have no plans for us, but anyway.
We do.
Yeah.
Felix, would that work for you to kind of have a little bit more discussion on this in August?
Yeah, sure. What I would suggest is rather than you all have me talking to you about this, I would suggest you invite the Anchorage Health Department, who owns the plan, who builds the plan, to come and speak to you.
Great, good idea.
Let me ask this, since we're talking about, you were stating that you probably wouldn't start rolling out your plan or solidifying until August. So maybe if we met on that in September, after the plan's rolled out, we would have some better input about what's really gonna take place.
Yeah, good feedback. Okay, let's move on to our next agenda item, which is preparing for our August meeting. So just as a kind of refresher, in our charter, we say, and this is our first year of coming to this point, so we haven't done this before, but we say that in August, let me find the actual part. Where do we talk about our co-chairs?
Yeah, that's.
Here we go, yep, sorry.
Yeah, that's in August.
Yep, so in August of each year, we need to select 2 co-chairs, and the co-chairs will be selected by nominations from the committee. A person can self-nominate to be a co-chair. Co-chairs will be decided by a vote of committee members present. And no co-chair may serve for more than 2 consecutive terms. So that's one thing we'll need to do in August. We also said last time that at our August, actually I can't remember exactly when we said we would do this, but we also said in August that we would review our annual plan and priorities and kind of check in on how we're doing. And maybe also, our plan is pretty big, which is fine, but we also might want to identify some specific priorities for fall and winter. So I just wanted to give us some time today to start those conversations so that we can be thinking about them between now and August. So maybe let's start with our annual plan and priorities. And I have a paper copy here. Do you have any paper copies, Jasmine? No? Okay, I can pass this around too, but yeah. Maybe just as a quick refresher, so we worked on this, I think in January or December of last year, we created this plan. We have basically like 3 big priorities for our committee. One is embedding equity in municipal plans, processes, and resources. So some of the things we'd identified under there were addressing hate speech and making public testimony welcoming. We did work on that a bit with one of the resolutions we worked on. Optimizing the role of the chief equity officer, equitable granting, hiring, and contracting processes. We haven't really touched that yet. Representing the full community and naming of public places, so that's actually something that Cameron is working on, that we've had input in. Updating Anchorage's equity strategic plan and priorities, I don't think that's happened yet or started yet. Providing input on resolutions, ordinances, and other assembly work, we've been doing that. Building understanding and capacity for building equity within this committee, the assembly, the administration, and municipalities. That's kind of an ongoing thing. And then our second big priority was meeting basic needs. So number one was language access and digital access. So we actually have had some discussion on both of those. Access to healthcare, and we'd identified Crisis Now as one of our priorities there, so we've been talking about that. Access and inclusion for people with disabilities, housing and homelessness, food and basic income, and specifically livable wages, especially for essential workers who are disproportionately BIPOC. And then also a public safety plan, which potentially could include things like the body cameras. And then our third big priority was equitable education and opportunities. So first one was closing the opportunity gap, creating equal opportunities by addressing inequitable access to early childhood and K-12 education, post-secondary adult and supports. Second one was creating a culture of equity within workplaces, organizations, and governance, and that's where I think the Equal Rights Commission and Equal Opportunity Organization comes in. Anyway, so those were some of our big priorities, and then we identified some activities to address those. I'm just going to pass this around the room so people can review. But any kind of initial thoughts about that, and again, we're going to talk about it at our next meeting.
Well, for me, what really jumped out that I don't see us really, and maybe I'm missing it, being involved in is the disability community. So I'd like.
What community?
The disability.
Okay.
I'd love to know what the city, there's a lot, so I'd like to see us maybe have someone from an organization, a disabled organization, come and talk to us, and then what can the city do to maybe bring more folks from the disabled community into employment? I don't know. So I don't know, I just feel led in that direction for some reason.
There was some really great, I think we could, well, Christy Lent is on our committee. She hasn't come the last couple of times, but she is part of this committee. And then, I don't know if other people caught this, but on the radio, I guess it was over the winter actually, there was someone from the, I think, Alaska Center for the Blind. And it was really awesome. Like they talked a lot about mobility issues, because you think about being blind and being in the winter, you can't drive. How do you get around? As well as a whole bunch of other stuff, like how do you help people use digital technology if you're not seeing, and maybe we could invite them.
And I just think because maybe it's not, we can't relate that it's not in our mindset. But it is, and I'm just curious and would love to see what we could do on a larger scale to get involved in the community.
Great suggestion. Other thoughts?
That's good. Well, I would say relative to an annual plan, and it's up for review and others, which means that we'll basically be agreeing upon and setting an annual plan for going forward as it relates to from this August to next August, so to speak. And so that was one thing that was brought up, that be placed in the priorities for fall and winter going forward. We can make that one of the priorities going forward. And one thing that's on my mind was Felix mentioned about the port, and that's going to entail a lot of work opportunities, and so contractually, my thought and question would be is how does minority contractors become a part of that process to a bigger degree. Because we're talking dollars and cents. Yeah.
Great suggestion. And I don't see any hands up there. And I would love to see us put something together so that we can secure funding for this group.
And that's part of the plan thought too. Yeah.
Timely, so that we're not last minute and because there's a lot of work and we don't have any money. We can support, and I've said this already, so.
And I think one thing, and this is just me, not the group, but I think one thing that we could help ourselves with going forward is because we run up against the boulder that no other committee has this. We run up against that boulder. So I think one thing, instead of throwing the whole idea of funding, throwing the baby out with the bathwater, maybe we could eliminate that honorarium part of it because that's a great drawback to even thinking about funding for this group.
And we could bring back the request that we put together hurriedly last time, which didn't succeed, but I think part of the time it didn't succeed is just because we were in a rush. So that was some of the feedback that Felix gave, was just that we needed to have more time to just kind of like talk with assembly members about it. And I think you're right, the honoraria was if you listen to the testimony, it was a big issue. So, but I think key would be really knowing what we're requesting funding for, and it's less I've heard you say a few times, it'd be great almost if we could do kind of like mini grants from this committee, and then other folks have talked about basically could we be more engaging with community members, like how could we get more input, and like are there either events or things that we could do that would actually kind of bring more input in. So that's great. Maybe just think about what you might want to, if we were going to request funding, what would the money be for? So we could talk about that in August too.
Exactly, because one of the big points, sticking points when we were communicated with about this was, one, as I forestated, that no other committee has this, and then secondly, the itemization for the funding, as you alluded to now, you know, what specifically, and I think it was mentioned in the past, it may have even been Celeste, I don't know, but I think it was mentioned in the past, and if not, I mention it now, that is that sometimes there's no way that you have knowledge forehand of what may come up that you might need that funding for. And so that should be part of the request for funding, acknowledging that part of it.
I think one of the things we've maybe asked for earlier too, which I'm just thinking is also on our current plan, is to do some kind of community planning. So if we wanted to have an equity plan for Anchorage, you know, just maybe some funding that would allow gathering that input, whether that's through survey, community meetings, like whatever it might be. A little bit like what you were just describing with the digital plan, where it's kind of like, what are the barriers we're experiencing? What are the main things we should focus on?
I just have a question, and I'm trying to see if Felix is still on there through the chair. Felix, can you share whether or not the city still has an affirmative action plan and what the status is? Because there should be some stuff in that plan that this group can actually organize and stuff.
Yes, the city still does have an affirmative action plan that's actually being updated right now. We actually have a really great staff person in the Human Resources Department that is an expert in these plans and is doing a lot of great work with it. So I would suggest, we actually had a work session. So I might suggest folks maybe listening to the recording of that work session. This would have been probably a couple months ago now, on the affirmative action plan. And then if this group wants more, I might just invite that person from HR to come and speak to the group about it.
That's great, thanks Felix. And Justin, can you just make a note to maybe find the link to that work session in our action notes? That'd be awesome.
Yeah,
Thank you.
With past federal stuff that's come down, that's encouraging that we still have a plan.
Great. Okay, how about, let's talk a little bit about co-chair nominations. Thinking of the next year. Thoughts on that?
I have a really good thought, because you said that you can serve 2 terms, right? So I make.
August. That happens in August.
Yeah. We can get that done today.
That happens in August.
I make an early motion. that we
Yes.
Maintain our current co-chairs.
Second.
Only
Think about it.
one issue with that. We may have more folk available in the August meeting because they know that's coming up the pipe. And if we make it a move today and it's supposed to happen in
Oh, yeah, we
August.
won't decide
Yeah,
today.
Well,
Just
somebody's
early
making
thoughts.
motions.
We'll
We
do
making
that
motions
next
and
time.
we got seconds and all that.
We're just making our
Yes,
instructions
Y'all
clear now.
practice it.
Yeah.
But I do think
I might kick me out.
it's great to have support from the committee. That's totally awesome. I just also don't want to be taking up space for someone else. So
Yeah.
maybe others can think about if they're interested or if they know other folks that might be interested. It's good to switch it up if there's others. Cool. Okay. And I don't think we need to look at our charter again. We've done that a lot. So I think that's. Any other thoughts about getting ready for August?
Well, my thing is that you said thoughts about getting ready for August, and my thought on this would be if we could ask all of the membership to, everybody should have it digitally to review annual plan and priorities. And, we're talking about priorities of fall and winter. Once you review those, maybe we can come back to the table in August already prepared for what priorities we might have going forward, and if there are any adjustments that we might want to make toward our annual plan, and then everybody prepared to do that and not really, take up a whole lot of time to do it.
That's a great idea. So I wonder if we could even.
Through the chair, I
Yeah, go
would
ahead.
just email it out to everyone.
That'd be great.
All right,
Yeah.
I already did it.
Oh, great. Okay,
Yeah,
awesome.
just now, so.
That's awesome. Thanks, Jasmine. And I think, if we could each kind of take the time to review that and maybe just think of what's the one thing you really want to make sure we do this fall and winter. I think that's a really good way to make our discussion go.
Yeah, can I make a suggestion?
Please do.
Okay, so I would say that the best way to move forward with our meetings in August is to take the things that we already, we have a very robust plan, but it's there was so much things going on at the same time. And so I think it's important to just prioritize, maybe talk about, highlight the ones that we actually had the needle moved, right? Because I think those ones would be the ones that we want to talk about more. And then whatever didn't come up, that means that it's basically not a priority for the time being. So moving items and objectives that is already in the works, and then putting the other work things at the bottom of our conversation.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I can definitely come with my computer and screen share, and we can kind of maybe. Do you think, Taffy, are you suggesting we do that live or do that people provide that input beforehand, or?
I think we can do that during our meeting, and then maybe share it prior to our meeting in August. And then if anyone else wants to add or subtract, we will do that.
Sorry, do what before August?
Prepare. I think that kind of coincides with what I was saying. If those priorities that we have worked on that are in works, I think that's what was being said. They can become priorities because there's already movement on them or whatever. But I think those areas, as I was forestating, those specific areas and whatever other areas we want to address, if we just came prepared to say this is what we want to do, then we'd be good going forward.
I guess my only concern about that is I feel like in the last 6 months, we've talked about this a little bit, a lot of stuff has come to the committee and we've worked on it because it's come to us. But like there are certain things that I feel like are real priorities that we haven't gotten to work on yet, like wages. I think wages and just wealth building are really important, and then just housing and homelessness, like we're still kind of back at like how do we figure out shelter when really it's like the housing issues are so much, it's like how do we build in, like, it's like the big stuff. So
Yeah.
that's what I'm struggling with.
But
How do we get to
here's
that?
what I'm saying. Those ideas that Taffy may have that we've already worked on that he might see, she might see, or they might see, Taffy might see as priorities or whatever you, and those that you might see and somebody else might see or whatever, we bring all of that together and decide on what we'll do going forward.
Yep.
Not exclusive to, anything that you may see or somebody else may see or whatever.
I was just trying to get, Taffy, are you thinking, were you suggesting some type of preparation before August? I think that was my question.
She has a thumbs up.
Yes, that's what I was suggesting.
So are you saying it'd be helpful for me to go through the plan and kind of identify the ones we've worked on?
I think we can, like for the both of us, we can kill two birds with one stone when we meet about the
our committee.
the committee, and then
Okay.
and then we can also work on that
Great.
and then send it out to the group.
Okay, I'm with you
Is that
now.
okay?
Sorry, I didn't catch that part about our committee. Perfect.
Through the chair, Teresa also made a comment.
Great.
She said, I think we need to be sure to know all the things we've accomplished.
Nice. It's always good to do that. Excellent. Okay, does that game plan sound okay?
Yeah, so I heard you mention homelessness again, and it just seems like there's so many people working in that area already, and this group can provide something, but I just don't see that being our focus. Now, don't throw anything at me or I mean, that's just how I feel.
Yeah, I think it's a good example of how the issue of homelessness is disproportionately impacting people of color, people who are marginalized, people with health issues, people with disabilities. So in that regard, it belongs to their committee, but you're absolutely right that there's a ton of other work happening that we
won't be able to focus
keep
on
on
it. It's that huge that it won't allow us to work on anything else.
Yep.
And
Yeah, well, the only piece I'd add to that is just exactly what Theo was saying, that like, we don't need to focus and solve it, I agree with you, because there's so many people working hard on it. But when I find that like there really doesn't seem to be much of a plan for language access around it, I feel like that's a place we can really say, all those applications only went out in English. They only went out online, so you need digital literacy skills, and like we can say, like that's not equitable. But so far as helping pick a site for where, there's people working hard on that I don't think we need to work on, but I do feel like there's constant discrimination that we see where people constantly pay $35 to apply, and then they don't get picked because the landlords don't pick them, and we think sometimes things like color and what language you speak interferes with being the top of the list ever.
Yeah, I agree, and I don't think we exist to solve everybody's problems and issues, but anywhere there is an instance of inequity, that's where we come in,
Well, I think we should be focusing on what are like the policies that we could bring forward, or support. Like another one for me that's coming up that we don't have time to talk about right now, or who knows when, but there's these proposals coming up about zoning, which seems like how could that possibly be related to us? But actually it's right in the square of this issue, because it's zoning is has a long history, and it is super related to how much housing will be developed and where.
And so as long as we understand that we're looking at stuff with our equity lens.
Yes.
I mean, that's the key.
Yeah.
And if,
And the overarching statement, you know, from the beginning, we're talking policies, we're talking procedures, and we're talking resources.
Right.
Everything that the assembly has to deal with, and we want equity in the policies, in the procedures, and in the
Hiring.
resources.
And contracting, yep.
mhm.
Okay, anyone online wanna jump in here? Okay, great, well, that is most of our agenda, unless anyone has questions or, items they wanna move forward to the assembly. Okay, is there any audience participation? Great, okay, any final comments, questions, concerns, shout outs?
Thanks, everybody.
Okay, enjoy your
Thank you.
evenings.
Have a good
Finally
session.
summer.
Yeah.
Take care, everyone. We're ready to get out of here.
Giving you like 5 minutes back of summer. Yeah.
All right.
Join.